Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. The subject of destiny is one that has held the fascination of human beings for virtually all of recorded history. From the earliest texts of the ancient Middle East, we see evidence of destiny playing a vital role in the way human life played out. There was almost always some element of this mysterious power wielding its invisible hand over everything that happened. It was invariably under the power of some divine force. In fact, other than the creation and reality of the world, destiny or fate was the primary function of any deity. This was what they did. They controlled the fate of human beings in the world. The two words fate and destiny are so intertwined that almost everybody assumes that they mean the same thing. Along with providence and karma and a few others, these crucial but somewhat mysterious words all refer to the supernatural force that compels nature and everything in the world to go according to a predetermined path. We still use these words today, even though many of us no longer really believe that such a thing actually exists. For the last couple of centuries, there has been a steady trend to disregard or ridicule the belief in something as antiquated as destiny. The scientific view of the world has no room for such a force, allotting it no more respect than superstition, prayer, or the very notion of a deity. This sort of thing just had to go, almost like it was destined to be rooted out of common sensibilities. In intellectual circles, it is looked upon as a throwback to all the fanciful beliefs of the Middle Ages and before, wrong and foolish and holding us back from our true unlimited potential. The odd thing is that science has really only tossed out one form of destiny or fate and replaced it with another. No longer is fate in the hands of some whimsical god or whatever, but it is firmly in the grasp of what they call the laws of nature. These immutable rules guide everything along its natural course, from the path and fate of the universe to the thoughts that populate the mind of a person. There is no room for any predetermined factors such as free will in the scientific worldview. It's really just destiny without the deity, fixed nature without anything supernatural. Of course, not everybody buys into this rigid scientific way of looking at things. In spite of our firm belief in the discoveries of science, many of us, perhaps most, still maintain an almost unwilling pull towards the opposing forces of both free will and a divinely guided destiny. Sometimes it seems like we have no control over our thoughts and beliefs in this regard. We find ourselves reluctantly acknowledging the existence of some force that steers our lives in subtle or powerful ways, even against our own will. For many, the reality of such a power is comforting, for it means that there is something beyond us that is running things. Perhaps it lends ultimate meaning to an otherwise meaningless existence. There is no question that the Bible is loaded with destiny. The entire history of the Israelites is packed with it. There are prophetic visions right and left, along with the general sense that all of this simply had to be. From beginning to the end, we see it. From Noah being told that a catastrophic flood was coming, which would destroy almost all life, to the final visions of Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel showing what would come at the end of days. Destiny is there with Moshe at the burning bush, and with the decree that the Israelites would die in the wilderness after believing the negative report of the spies concerning the land of Canaan. It is there with the stories of Abraham, and it remained a firm feature of Judaism long after the Jews were exiled from the Promised Land. Their return to Israel in the 20th century is more often than not seen as the ultimate example of destiny. This was meant to be. This week's Parsha is called Lech Lecha. It's a strange sounding phrase that means go for yourself. It sounds better in the original Hebrew than in translation. It was the first command God gave to Avram when he still lived in the region of ancient Mesopotamia. God told him to leave his homeland and to travel to an unknown place, which he would somehow be shown. The key phrase, for yourself, gives this command a sense of destiny. It is as if God were telling Abraham to go so that you may become yourself, the person you were meant to be. This Parsha is packed with classic episodes that were so formative for both the Bible and the history of monotheism. The very fact of God coming to Avram and speaking to him as an individual who was destined to become the founder of a great nation ranks among the most important ideas of the entire Torah. This Parsha includes the first journeys through the ancient land of Canaan and the first of many famines there. It includes a war involving several local kingdoms that went on for over a decade. It tells of the barrenness of Sarai, Avram's wife, and her suggestion that he take her maid, Hagar, as a second wife to produce children. But it also describes the strife that went on as a result of that suggestion and how Avram was forced to drive Hagar out into the wilderness to fend for herself. It was while out there in the desert that she received her prophetic destiny as the ancestress of a great nation. The Parsha ends with a chapter dealing with the command of circumcision, the defining feature of Judaism. This practice, which may have been unprecedented before this command, was given to Avram and all of his descendants. In the course of this command, Avram was told that his name was to be changed to the famous Abraham, among the best-known names in human history. His wife's name was to be changed to Sarah, almost equally famous. This name change was necessary in order for them to fulfill their destiny of producing a descendant together. Somehow they would not have been able to found their nation if they had kept their original names. The name change resulted in a change of destiny, and then things could proceed as they were supposed to. In the middle of all that, there is a section that really hits destiny right between the eyes. It is the first explicit covenant between God and Abraham, or Avram as he was then called. It is classically called the covenant between the pieces, a rather strange title for such a significant event. It took place right after that major war between all those kingdoms, which Avram played a crucial role in ending. Avram had no children at this point, and he was getting quite old. He thought that his only heir would be his trusted servant Eliezer from Damascus. In response to this lament, God surprises him with the prophecy that one who came from his own body would be his ultimate heir. His descendants would be as numerous as the stars of the sky. The Torah says that Avram believed this, and it was considered a righteous act that he could believe something that seemed so impossible at the time. He is then told that the land he was on would be his hereditary possession. Avram then asked how he could know that this would indeed be so. In response, he was told to prepare several animal and bird offerings and to split the animal offerings in half. These are the pieces that this covenant is named after. In the midst of this offering, Avram fell into a trance during which he heard the fateful words, quote, "Know that your descendants will be strangers in a strange land, and that they will be oppressed and enslaved for 400 years. In addition, the nation that enslaves them will be judged, and afterwards they will leave with great wealth. You shall go to your fathers in peace and be buried at a good old age. The fourth generation will return here, for the sin of the Amorites will not be complete until then." The sun sets and darkness creeps in. Then comes an image of flames and a furnace passing between the halves of the animal offerings. The covenant is then finalized with the promise that Avram's descendants would receive this land all the way from Egypt to the Euphrates. This is the end of the vision and the covenant. It has its share of mysterious items, such as the animals split apart, the trance, the darkness, and the flames. Whatever the symbolism might be behind all that is difficult to say. All Avram asked about was how he could know that he would indeed inherit the land. Why was this whole business about slavery for 400 years relevant to this question? What did any of that have to do with what he asked? It seems that Avram asked a simple and straightforward question and received something vague and irrelevant in response. Perhaps the answer to this question is hinted at in the darkness and the trance. He asked how he could know that the land would be his hereditary possession. The answer was that he would not know it. It would take 400 years before things would come about that would enable his descendants to return. By then, Abraham would be long gone and buried in his grave. In fact, subsequent events would make it seem highly unlikely that any of this would ever come to be. His descendants would be enslaved for centuries. They wouldn't be living in this land at all. By the end of those centuries, all this would probably be forgotten, like a fleeting dream. But it would still happen. This highly significant covenant, perhaps, is telling us something very important about the biblical view of destiny. Destiny is written all over this story, but destiny has a way of going through all kinds of tunnels and dead ends. It is not necessarily a straight path from beginning to end. In fact, the end might not be the least bit evident from the beginning. It may seem obvious that the destined course is impossible to come to fruition. That does not change the destiny at all. It just makes it highly obscure. Perhaps this is a prototype for the biblical idea of destiny. Destiny may only be apparent after the fact. It may be as dark as the night and as foggy as a trance. There may be only the slightest hints that this is indeed destiny and not just some haphazard turn of events. This is almost always the way matters of destiny play out. They are clear in retrospect, but not at all clear when things are still being worked out. When we look for destiny in our lives, perhaps we should not expect things to be crystal clear, like a movie that has already been made but not yet shown. We may be in that movie, but we only realize it when it is over. For those who believe in it, there are few things in life more powerful than destiny. But even for them, its path is never clear until it is finished. Shabbat Shalom.